Hi guys, I'm Jeremiah doing the Incredible Hulk review. It's the second MCU film and it's the second Hulk film in live action. It's directed by Lou Leterrier and it stars Edward Norton, Liv Tyler, William Hurt, Tim Roth, Tim Blake Nelson and Ty Burrell. The movie is about Bruce Banner. After a failed experiment, he goes into hiding, trying to find a cure for his problem situation. Which every time he gets angry or increased heart rate, he turns to Hulk. From his hiding, he cuts off from everyone, including the one he truly loves, Betty Ross. And the reason why he goes into main reason why he goes into hiding because of her father, Thunderbolt Ross, who wants to use his DNA to produce more super soldiers. But in the midst of that, there's a new threat called an Abomination, which Banner has to face. In this movie, you see Marvel keeping the story simple and not as convoluted as the last Hulk film directed by Ang Lee. Marvel drew its inspiration for this film from the TV series and the animated series, and you can see it throughout the film, by which he's always constant on the run, and the military aspect always chasing him. That also has a simple 3-act structure, by which you see Bruce Banner trying to keep his heart rate low, trying to stay out of trouble in the first act, second act trying to get in for information, and the third act trying to is the resolution and the final fight. The film also draws inspiration from the Bourne films, in particular Bourne Supremacy, with which the music resembles the Bourne. Like he's always on the run, always on the chase, he's always on the move, especially in the first act. And you see him constantly trying to avoid trouble and trying to avoid the military as much as possible. Like the Bourne always trying to avoid the CIA in that aspect. For strengths and weaknesses, the main strength is Edward Norton. He really sank his teeth on the role. You see the effort, you see the commitment. You actually believe he's really suffering with the contamination. He doesn't want to be a full rage monster all the time. He doesn't want to lose control. And you see the post-traumatic stress after changing back into the Hulk. Another strength is the relationship between Bruce Banner and Betty Ross and Hulk and Betty Ross. You see the true love for each other and the longing for each other when you see them meeting, and you see how Betty is used to calm the Hulk down, and you see her as a link between Bruce Banner and the Hulk. When the Hulk is transformed, it gives like a sense of humanity for the Hulk character. The music is fantastic. It's one of the best soundtracks in the MCU, and it has a really strong Hulk theme. It gives you this classic monster theme with a sense of horror with the organs as it builds and builds and builds. And when you see him transform into a Hulk, when the soundtrack, the theme, Hulk theme plays in, you know it could have been a definitive theme for a character. The soundtrack also in the first act is really good. The reason why I say it's Bourne is because it reminds me of Bourne Supremacy when he's on the run being chased by the military and mercenaries, like in the favelas in Brazil. And it reminds me of Supremacy, like it's like Bourne is always being chased, always on the run in that aspect. In terms of the romantic aspect, it's really somber, and it shows the longing for the two characters, Betty and Bruce, and Betty and Hulk, and it actually draws you into their relationship. And that's how a strong soundtrack and music does for you. It heightens each scene. And for the final fight, when you see Hulk faces up his enemy, it plays the Hulk theme and builds onto the fight each other. And when it gets bombastic when it needs to, but it also gets soft when it needs to be as well. The worst part of the film is the CGI. Now, when the Hulk goes into light, you see it's badly rendered and it does not blend well at all. It's really disappointing. Coming from the Ang Lee Hulk, which was pretty bad itself, but this is somehow blatant. But at night, the CGI really blends well. But maybe because it covers the weaknesses of the bad rendering in the daylight. The villain of Thunderbolt Ross, there's no depth in the character. In the animated series, you see the conflict between Ross and Bruce, and you see the tension because Thunderbolt Ross is Betty's father, and Bruce is in love with Betty, and it was a big opportunity missed. It was kind of brushed off because in the opening credits of the film, it showed you the origins in just a minute, so you don't really get to see that tension growing. You basically see Ross seeing the experiment goes wrong, and he's mad at him, but there was no depth of why he's mad. And Ross is known to be a stubborn character, so you saw the stubbornness, but you don't see why he's so stubborn. Last weakness, I would say, the story was not complex. It's really simple, and the 3-act structure is: Bruce gets mad, turns to Hulk, act ends, second act begins, he becomes back to normal. He turns into Hulk again, act ends, he goes back to Banner. The second act is over. Third act, the big fight. So it's really it becomes really predictable in that aspect, and that's probably why the negative of being playing too safe from the Ang Lee Hulk. Overall, the film is generally good. I feel it's underappreciated and underhyped. And the reason why, because after the last Hulk film, it was really disappointing, and probably left sour taste, and not many people watched the film. People who watched the film say it was alright, but I think it was more to the story. Even though it was a simple plot, but the dynamics of the characters between Bruce and Betty, and you see him suffering from his transformations. So he really wants to get rid of the Hulk. Like, he doesn't want to use weapons of mass destruction. Like, that's a strong aspect of the film. But what brings it back is it's a really simple film. Maybe it's too simple for others. Maybe that's why it's so forgettable. It hasn't had that moments what Marvel is really famous for, apart from the final fight between the Hulk and the villain. I will give it like a 7.1 out of 10. It's a good film. It's not bad. It's like a step in the right direction. It's a good second movie in the MCU. But I feel sorry for Edward Norton, because he really tried in that film. There was supposed to be more character development of the film, but it was cut out, and I think there was it was a bit of bad blood. It was a bit of bad blood between Marvel and Universal, because Universal owned the right to distribute, and Marvel only had the right to make the film. So Universal did not market the film. They cut the film all out. They cut the film, the character development of the film, and that really pissed off Edward Norton. And you can see him in the next Avengers films and for Ragnarok. So you see why he's replaced by Mark Ruffalo. But I think he really tried. He really did well in the role, and he brought a sense of drama, a sense of, you feel like, humanity to the character, which Mark Ruffalo I think was serviceable, but since he hasn't had his own film, you don't really feel as sorry as you felt with Edward Norton, and that's probably my bias. Eric Bana was alright, but he was a bit boring, and his Hulk was just like Play-Doh. I'll call him Play-Doh Hulk. For Hulk in this one, me and my friend had like a in joke. We used to call him the Zac Efron Hulk. He wasn't like a monster, really. The best Hulk, I would say, was a Mark Ruffalo Hulk, because he's more of a monster than for Edward Norton. But I prefer Edward Norton as a better banner than Mark Ruffalo. Well, that's the end of the review, guys. Click like and subscribe, and give the bell ring, notification bell. And now the next movie will be Iron Man 2. And I'm not enjoying watching that film, to be honest. Anyway, guys, bye. Peace.